Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining from. Thank you for joining us in our bi weekly series, Envision Voices on LinkedIn. I'm your host, Vikas Bhambri, SVP Sales over here at Yellow.ai. I'm excited to bring you this show live so that we can take questions, feedback, and allow you to engage one another in the chat. This is all about learning, not just for you, but for me as well. And in every episode, we bring you some of the sharpest minds in customer experience and employee experience around AI to help you navigate the next few years, regardless of where you are in your adoption curve. This week, we are so fortunate to have Lynda Harvey, founder of Leveled Up Leadership, join the show. Welcome, Lynda. And
Hi.
Let everybody know where you're dialing in from this Thursday.
I am dialing in from a very sunny, beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah.
Excellent. Do you want to tell the team a little bit about what you're up to today and kind of your background in customer experience?
Sure, I'd love to do that. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. I will talk CX all day, every day. And Vikas, any moments that I get to spend with you are just a pure delight. So I'm so excited to be here.
Too kind.
I've spent about the last 20 years in the CX space in a myriad of different roles and in different industries, but spent about the last 20 years, with the last 10 years really focused on building and scaling teams in the CX space. So I've got lots to say about CX. I have recently kind of branched out from that space and started my own company, which is Leveled Up Leadership, where I work with leadership with organizations to make their managers more tactical and ready to face the challenges of day-to-day management. So that's kind of what I'm up to and where I've been.
That's awesome. And I know we're really excited to have you on to kind of help break through some of the noise around AI and kind of hearing from you as a veteran industry leader. So, as you said, you've kind of been in the CX space for the last 15, 20 years. From your perspective, what are some of the critical shifts that are happening around customer expectations that leaders have to address today to remain competitive? And where does technology play a role in meeting these new demands?
Sure. So the biggest shift I've seen with customers is, there's always been this demand there's always been urgency, right? Our customers always want their issues handled really, really quickly, but there's no longer an expectations. It's really more of a demand. So the customers are now demanding instant solutions and instant gratification, and I think that that's the world that we live in with our access to everything is so instant. Our customers are also expecting this instant response, instant gratification. But then getting an answer to the question or coming out with a solution is just no longer enough, right? It's okay, now what? It's more of that yes and. So, okay, what else are you going to do for me? So there's really more call for surprise and delight in the industry. And it's no longer a surprise and delight. That really is becoming more and more the expectation.
Yeah, I've heard some of your peers kind of previously kind of blame this on the Amazon effect, right? That Amazon as this brand not only, delivers things almost instantly now, right? I mean, you can order something and it's there within, hours, but also in terms of their automated customer experience, right? And how seamless it seems to be. Do you feel like that is almost put more pressure on everybody else to step up and kind of match that consumer expectation?
Yeah, the Amazon effect is real. Right. And people are, I've worked in DTC with customers for a long time, and people are like, I have to wait 3 days to get something. I mean, it's just this amazing shock from them that there is a time that they just can't have something instantly. But I think it's also, I mean, if I'm thinking in the CX world, I think it's also the Chewy effect. So if you've ever called Chewy or dealt with Chewy, Chewy picks up immediately, right? And their number is easy to find. Good luck trying to contact Amazon and get somebody on the phone. But if you want to talk to Chewy, you don't wait. It's an instant pickup. And then Chewy has also got, I mean, they just have such great customer service. They also do the surprise and delight so well. I will never forget the year that my cat got a Christmas card
Oh,
from,
wow.
or holiday card from Chewy. And I was just like, really? It was addressed to my cat and everything. And they're like, make sure you scratch your humans behind the ears. Like, it was so funny. But those are the things that I think all customer service is dealing with competing with that instant Amazon effect, but then also those surprise and delights and those little extra sprinkles that some companies are putting on CX.
So where do you think technology plays a role in that, right? If you think about, the human agent, we'll use the term human agent because at some point we'll talk a little bit about AI agents. But
Yeah.
when you think about the human agent, like how can we support them from a technology perspective in being able to deliver that instant response or that, kind of answer, but also being able to surprise and delight the customer, or does technology not even play a role?
No, technology absolutely plays a role because we have all these great ideas of how we can meet the customer instantly. And we have these, like, how we can surprise and delight. Sadly, they are very difficult to scale. So you want to send a customer, let's say you want to send a holiday card to a customer. Well, you've got to be able to order that SKU in the system and then put it through and then get get the personalized message in there and then get it sent versus, for small scale organizations, sure, you could have somebody go put a handwritten note, but what happens when you've, 50x your business?
Sure.
That's impossible to scale. So you have to be able to integrate systems in to automate these systems, right? And then also getting to the right person. I think the technology, again, when customers want that instant solution, nothing is worse than going through an IVR that you have to talk to that doesn't understand you, that gets you to the wrong agent or the wrong department. So technology really coming in and being able to kind of bucket those customers in the right places and put those customers to the correct humans on the other end to solve their problems. I mean, we all have had that experience where we dial in and we tell our problem to somebody, and then they're like, I can't help you. Let me transfer you to the next person. And then you tell your story again, and then they're like, I can't help you, and then
Right.
transfer you again. So technology is huge to getting our customers to the right people.
Right. And then when we think about that is, you and I have been around the contact center for so long, and we still talk a lot about, the standard metrics, right? Even today, if I walked into a contact center operation, they're probably talking about CSAT and NPS. Like, what are some of the more advanced ways or, just let's say alternative or unconventional ways where people can think about effectively measuring the business impact of the customer experience they're delivering? And then how can technology make sure, because I think it's so easy for people to just say, oh, I have a CSAT report, I have an NPS report. And I think sometimes with these more unconventional approaches, the challenge is people are like, well, I can't report on that. So how do I know if I'm surprising and delighting my customers? What's your take on that approach?
So I think the thing that is often overlooked is the customer sentiment on their inbound, right? So when they have to reach out to us, there's so much assumptions that our customers are super angry, and so that's why they're contacting CX. And then we look at NPS and we go, well, they were super angry, and look at all of these contacts that came in, and then we rate them against our NPS or our CSAT, which is like, oh, but look how happy they are at the end. Well, there is a lot of information that is lost in that process. We don't know, first of all, not all of our customers who call are angry, right? So understanding their customer sentiment when they first contact us, and then gauging the customer sentiment on their life cycle, right? So you might have a brand new customer who calls in with an angry sentiment. At the end, we get a CSAT says that they're happy and excited, right? So we're like, yay, we're fixing all the problems. But what is our customer sentiment for people who are in the middle of the life cycle? Or what's the customer sentiment for churn? You may actually have a really positive experience with a churned customer, but you're like, oh, it must be a negative experience, where it's like, well, no, because we didn't offer X, Y, and Z to satisfy this, or this doesn't even exist in our catalog of products. So that's why they had to churn. So understanding the customer sentiment, I think, is huge. And then tracking that through their life cycle, I think, is another really important way to look at it. The other thing that some contact centers get right and some of them don't, we really kind of talk about like the touches per ticket, or whatever lingo we're using, first contact resolution, whatever. That is a really critical piece of information. But then again, tying it to the life cycle of your customer. So do you have a customer who calls you every Wednesday, right? Like, how can we get in front of that? Or do you have a customer that doesn't call you until you churn? There's a ton of insight in saying we have 80% of our customers never even talk to us until we churn. And we know that once they churn, there's likely no saving that customer.
Right.
So what can we do in the middle? So just looking at CSAT and NPS, and really, I think that those systems are fairly faulty in the sense of they just show you what it is right after you spoke to them. Right. So if you have an interaction where we told them a bunch of lies and we had just told them everything that they wanted to hear, they're like 10 out of 10. And 2 days later, they're like negative 40 out of 10. Like, I still am not solved. So again, watching those customer sentiments and tying them to the life cycle of the customer, and then really looking at how often are you talking to your customers? What is your like touches per interaction? Tying those pieces in. And I think that gives you the full picture. CSAT and NPS are just not enough.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really valid point, which is, it's eye-opening for me, is that CSAT kind of measures that point in time interaction, but to like have a broader look at your customers, maybe putting them into different cohorts, like you said, new customers, customers that are worth X, or however you bucket it, and then see kind of what their behaviors are and sentiments at a broader context, which honestly, my experience is not a lot of people are doing that, right? It seems to be, very point in time, and very driven by, holding the agent accountable, like the individual, as opposed to the broader organization. And when I say broader, it's not just the contact center, it's like the business, particularly if you're in a D2C consumer facing business.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so AI, it is all anybody's talking about. I think every time I turn on the news, there's another update. It's being talked about on Capitol Hill. It's across the board. We're talking about federal level, state level, like who's going to regulate this. When you think about AI and the potential that it could unlock, where do you get excited about how it could deliver, either a unique experience for the consumer or from just a general operating model for your contact center leader peers?
Yeah. So one of the largest challenges I think I've faced in the contact center space is how can we most efficiently help our customers? And when I say efficiently, I'm not talking about like how long we're talking to them or how are we solving their problems, but how can we get them to the expert, the right person first, right? And that is such a challenge. And I talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago where I said, like, you tell your story and then they're like, I can't help you. And then you tell the story again, right? And by the time you've got this customer who's like, if I have to tell this story one more time, I'm going to rip out my hair. But also like, why can't you get it together? And that has been such a challenge in this space, especially when you have like experts. You're like, oh, Lynda is really, really good about de-escalating customers. So if we are going to have somebody who's going to come in hot, like let's try and get them to Lynda. Or we've got Vikas who's really, really good at like seeing the big picture and solving it so much more quickly. Or somebody else has got a relationship with product. And so they can really get the answer on these complicated, like, what just happened to this customer, right? So, but the thing is like it's kind of shooting fish in a barrel. Like the call comes in and it just goes to somebody and then they're trying to solve it. And for me, like AI is the most exciting in that where we can get the customer to the right expert, whether it's through like AI where the customer doesn't even interact with them at all, but the AI is like siphoning out information and going like, oh, this person's had 8 orders that have been wrong. Like, we have to get them here. Or, this is a brand new customer. Let's get them to our peppiest agents, right? Like, being able to really segment our customers and get them to the right people. I think there's also so many amazing things that are happening in AI where the conversations, like, you can identify like, oh, like a chatbot or even an AI agent saying like, who can have like the initial conversation. And if I call and get another IVR that's like, I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
Right.
Like, that's not happening anymore. Like, these AI, these conversations are real conversations because of the work that has gone into it. And I get so excited when I can see something where it's like really real. Or you can have something that's like, hey, I'm a bot, but I'm going to gather this information. And sometimes they feel more human than some of our humans at the other end, because they never get tired. They
Right.
never go like, this is the 80th time somebody's asked me to this today, and are you an idiot? Like, they don't get the apathy that the agents, that creeps in for a lot of our
Sure.
agents, which is so great because we get less apathy from our agents, because our agents are getting more information that's passed along to them through the AI. They're getting the bigger picture. And then they get to go right into solve mode, which is, if we've hired the right agents, they get excited when they get to solve. They get excited when they get to do these things for the customer and really make their day. And if we can take those kind of mundane or fact gathering tasks off of their plate, imagine like how much better of an interaction. And again, the customer doesn't feel like they're passed around. They're not telling their same story over and over, and they're getting that instant gratification.
Right. So to me, what I'm hearing is, if the AI can pick up the conversation, right, whether it's over a voice channel or a chat channel or any really channel of the consumer's preference, and actually resolve, I don't want to just say low hanging fruit, because obviously with the advances in AI, they can handle more complex tasks, but a lot of the things that maybe repetitively get called into a contact center about, right? And I think about anything from like, what are your store hours? What's your return policy? How do you have this item in stock? Like, as you said, like, for an agent, that's not even an interesting topic. Maybe it is the first time they hear it on a Monday morning, but by Friday at noon, and they've heard it, 200 times, it might be pretty mundane, right? So first is like, how do we offload some of those? And then for those more complex things is, how do we gather information and then make the agent more effective when they are having that conversation, and use that data to route, kind of do a pairing where it's like, hey, now that we have this data, the best person to resolve this particular inquiry for this particular customer, because they've ordered from us 8 times and they've had issues, is Lynda, because we know that Vikas's skill set doesn't match that, right? And kind of do that pairing.
Exactly.
So it's interesting, because we're not talking about, and I think a lot of times when people talk about AI, right, the first thing they jump to is absolutely replacing humans. And I don't think neither you or I have said that, nor do we believe that that is going to deliver the optimal experience for the consumer and the brand. What do you think about AI in terms of assisting the agent once they are actually on a call or doing a chat with a customer? Where can that kind of fit in, or is that actually counterproductive? Does it actually make them kind of less opportunistic to kind of solve that problem the way they want to?
No, I don't think so. I think most of your CX agents are really interested. Like, the reason they work in this industry, because it's not an easy industry. It's a hard job. I mean, no, it's not doing heart surgery on babies, but it is a hard job, and working with humans and different personalities is a hard job. So anything that we can do to make their lives a little bit simpler is going to be better, and it allows them to be happier in their jobs, and it allows them to do their jobs more effectively, and it lowers churn within our industry as well. So anything that we can do where it's like, hey, they were just looking for their tracking number, and I already sent it off to them, right? Then it's like, okay, I don't have to do that. But you do get to be the hero at the end of the day. So let's say that you've got a customer who calls in for their tracking number. They get the tracking number and then they still have another question. So they go to the agent and the agent can answer that question. And then they can also say, hey, it looks like you have your tracking number. It looks like everything's set. And that's when they can do even that surprise and delight in the conversation, right? Where it's like, hey, I've already tracked that and I can see it's out for delivery, or I've done that for you already, right? So it allows them to be the hero of their story every single time. And it helps them again, because on Friday at 4, your brain is fried. Like,
Right.
it's just like, I have talked to so many people this week, and it gives them that headspace to do those extra things. So they're not as tired at the end of the day, and they don't feel like they have like that every bit of their soul has been sucked out. They feel like, okay, I still have more to give.
Right.
So that's how I see AI really assisting it. And, if we're using it in a smart way in the contact center, we can even like the AI has gotten so good where it can listen to the call and it can give you suggestions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's correct.
so if the customer is like, I don't know how to do this, and you've got a brand new agent, right? And let's be honest, customers don't care if you're brand new or if you've been at the company since the beginning of time. They want the answer right now. But for new agents, like if it pops up like, hey, this is the answer to their question, or start clicking here, like these are some places to start, you have less of the deer in the headlights. And again, it boils down to the effectiveness of the agent, the efficiency, but also it feeds into overall job satisfaction. So I believe that if we're using AI effectively, that it really enhances the jobs. And because it's taking some of that lower hanging fruit, or it's taking those questions that come in, like the 80% of your questions that are coming in, and it's helping kind of deflect those a little bit, that we're also seeing an increase in wages for these individuals, which
Oh,
is
interesting.
really, really great, because we can pay them more because we've deflected so much. So we can hire the best of the best and we can pay them better.
So we're basically talking about a fundamental shift, right, in the
Yes.
contact center industry and kind of the types of people, and like you said, like true knowledge work, right? And I remember years ago, I was sitting down with an executive from one of the major U.S. airlines, and he said, "Look, our nirvana is that if you're just booking a round trip ticket from point A to point B, you should never speak to a human being. Where we want our people to really get involved is you've got a multi-city trip, you're traveling with your family, you want to take your dog with you, whatever it is. That's where we want our people, because that's exciting. Now I'm problem solving. I got to get you from New York to LA with your dog and your 3-year-old. Let me figure out the best way to do this, right? And that's where the excitement comes in. And automation can handle just the basic, Vikas needs to go on a business trip to LA round trip. We don't need a human being to get involved in that discussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when we think about, all of these new things we want to do, but we've invested so much in the people, the process, technology. And I'm sure if you were still operating one of your contact centers and I walked in and you just been through a 2 years, maybe you've implemented a new ticketing system and maybe a new voice system. It's like, okay, here's one more thing. Let's talk about AI. Like, at what point do you just get enough's enough? I've put in a lot. We've done a lot. Like this, I can actually kind of like, this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? Like, how much can you absorb as a leader and as an operation with all the new technology and ideas?
Yeah. So I think that in depending on the space that you're in. So I think that the testing, everybody wants to run a test. Everybody wants to test everything, right? Um and I think that there's a lot of space for testing, right? I think that there's a lot of ways for us to say, like, let's run an A/B test and let's see what we get
Sure.
the net results. Uh, and I do believe that there is call for that in the CX space, right? Like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't try new ideas, but the thing that gets me really a little hot under the collar is we don't need to constantly throw new systems all of the time, right? And I think that there are spaces where we can constantly throw new systems and we can constantly innovate and we can do those things. But CX is a space where we may need to move a little, like watch our results a little bit on a slower side. And I know I'm hearing people cringe, like I can hear the whole internet cringe right now. But we need to allow these theories to play out. We need to be able to track them, and we need to be able to track what's going on with our customers. And again, that's where we're looking at life cycle and we're looking at customer sentiment. We're looking at that big picture. We cannot be hyper focused on just one moment.
Right.
And that's where I think, like, in CX, I'm just like, geez, will you stop throwing new systems at me? We don't even know if the first 3 systems we put in place are working the way, like, we haven't had enough time to track this with our customers or track this, like, the sentiment with our customers. And now we want to layer one more thing in. So I do think, especially, I've spent a lot of time in startup space, and we have to move at the speed of now. Like, there is no option but moving at the speed of now. But when it comes to CX, we do need to take a step back. And this is where we need to look at that. We need to look at the minutia, right? But we also need to look at that 40,000 foot view and look at the broader picture. And then we need to also decide, like, is this new hot, sexy thing going to hurt our long-term customers just to please 3% new customers that we may or may not be able to even maintain? So that's my cautionary tale.
Yeah,
to see
I love it because I think especially as in my seat, right, sitting as a technologist and kind of playing around and with all these different tools, it's like, okay, yeah, certainly this can add value, but to your point is, have we even digested what we've already consumed? Like, let's make sure that this is delivering value before we add the next thing and the next thing. So super helpful. I know we're almost up against time, so I'm going to put you on the spot here with our rapid fire round.
Okay, I'm ready.
3 questions, right? So, okay, first one. What's the most common misconception about AI that you wish people would stop believing?
That's like the hottest question. I literally got in an argument over this over the weekend with one of my
I want
friends.
to hear this.
Yeah. That it's all replacing all of the jobs. Like, that there, with AI, there's no jobs. And I continue to tell people, AI is just changing the job landscape. It's just modifying what we've got. At the end of the day, we still need people who are putting the information in, and we still need people to interpret the information. So yes, the job market is changing, and yes, AI is replacing certain functions, but we still need humans, like, surrounding it and lifting it up. So, and this girlfriend and I we just ended up not seeing eye to eye, but I was just like, it's not taking all of the jobs. It's changing the jobs.
Right. I always tell people there's still a human being at the other end, right? Like, it doesn't, and obviously we're talking about the CX space, but let's take law as an example. Like, yeah, maybe an AI bot can kind of be my defense attorney, but I'd much rather be dealing with a human being who might have a bit more empathy, maybe, hopefully, for my situation. And by the way, I'm not in any legal trouble, but I'm just using that as an example, right? So, okay, if you could keep one current AI application for the benefit of humanity, what would it be and why?
Oh God, I love ChatGPT so hard. Like, I love it so hard. And it's for purely selfish reasons. I think that I'm a decent writer. Like, I think I'm pretty good at, and every time ChatGPT does it better. And I'm like, man, like you described that so much better than I could. And so I probably, it's more because I'm envious of its mad skills.
Yeah. I am not a writer. My brother was the English major. I was the math major. And I tell you, for somebody like me, it is so helpful. I agree with you. Okay. Last question.
Yes.
Let's look ahead. Let's kind of get into our time capsule. Let's look ahead 5 years. What's the one AI development that excites you the most that you see coming or maybe you're hearing about, but what's one that maybe concerns you a bit as well?
I would say it's the same thing. I'm super excited about the conversational, like the AI agents and uh, agents that can take any language and can help out in conversations and really have those conversations. So that excites me the most. And I think that that's going to be our biggest up and coming in this space for CX. I'm also very afraid, only because, I've lived in the world of like, I'm sorry, I don't understand you. Can you
Right.
repeat? So when it goes wrong, it goes really, really wrong. But when it goes right, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, agreed. Lynda, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time this afternoon. And for everybody that was listening and will listen to this in the future, thank you so much for joining. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.